Off, off. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Kelly.
A pleasant good afternoon, sisters and brothers. You can't imagine how happy I am to see you. Uh, and I'm sure you're happy to be here, and you will be glad for the experience of being here. But before we say anything further, let me just invite us to be still as we acknowledge the presence of the Lord our God, who has made life for us possible and enables us to have that attitude of gratitude as we enjoy the life that he has given us. So let us pray. Gracious God, worship takes place in many ways because an important aspect of worship is stewardship of the lives that you have given us in terms of our bodies, of our minds, and indeed of our spirit. So today, this afternoon, we come for stewardship, to be educated in that regard as it relates to our body and relates to the challenges that our body faces through illnesses. So as we listen intently, share generously with our presenter, Brother Tony Kelly, and share with each other on the information, our life experiences, and our hopes and visions that this illness called diabetes can be controlled, managed, and minimized. We pray that we will find it to have been a good afternoon And at the end of it all, we would have been able to say, it was good to have been here. So we continue to ask your blessing upon your son, an ambassador for this cause, Brother Kelly, as he shares his experience, his knowledge with us and with others. This we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So I always like my prayers to sort of give us a background as to what is going to transpire. So I hope you kind of already begun to understand what we're here to do. We are fortunate to have in our midst a diabetes champion in the form of Mr. Tony Kelly. But who is Tony Kelly? Well, he's British born. But guess what? He was raised in Jamaica and had the great fortune, therefore, of claiming all the privileges of Jamaican heritage, which includes being educated at Jamaica. He also has the privilege of being a part of that noble profession called teaching, where he taught English and religious education in some of our high schools in Kingston. He had to leave for, I guess, for a variety of reasons. Life is full of dynamics. So he went back to Britain, where he distinguished himself over there in various fields. But speaking specifically of diabetes, the field and area that he champions, for nearly 8 years, from June 2012, our brother Tony was a Diabetes UK community champion, devoting his time educating communities in Britain and further afield about health and well-being in relation to diabetes. In his case, a hereditary medical condition. He is proud to have controlled his type 2 diabetes with physical activity and diet since diagnosis 18 years ago, and has never taken medication, thus proving it can be done with the right mindset, discipline, and motivation. In addition to that, Dr. Richard Mendelssohn, the medical director for the NHS in Birmingham, witnessed Tolly asking some probing questions at a South Asian Health Foundation Diabetes Conference. And during the break, invited him to join the diabetes group which he chairs. He accepted, and since 2020 is the organization's diabetes strategic patient partner, and is separately an ambassador advocate in the wider community. And he will speak more about that, I'm sure, about what that means. Suffice it to say, therefore, you are getting the picture that here is a man who can speak from experience, not on his own, but also in conjunction with the medical fraternity about the realities of diabetes. Here is a person who is able to motivate us to say that there is life after the diagnosis of diabetes. Here is a man who, being Jamaican, understands how we're sugar-loving people. And here is a man who feels passionate about this, and so much so that he's traveling the world, inclusive of the Caribbean, in this cause. We are fortunate here at the Church of the Ascension to be his last stop, I believe, because he leaves for Barbados tomorrow. So, without further ado, may I invite us to heartily welcome Mr. Kelly, and we trust that he will have a good fellowship with us.
Am I being heard? Yeah. Thank you, Reverend Allen, for that warm welcome. Before I start the presentation, I'll just highlight a few things. As was said, I do leave tomorrow for Barbados, where I will be until the 3rd of December, doing this same diabetes awareness. There's a feedback coming. Does that it? All right. Thank you. So I arrived here on the 18th of October. That's when I arrived here. And the first part of the holiday was to be amongst my fellow Myconians and family and friends. My wife and daughter and son-in-law, they're not on this trip, so I am dependent on people to take me around, and they have done. And I've viewed the landscape, or so to speak. So I'm going to speak from a position where I'm talking about some of the things I've seen. I've been down to Coronation Market, okay? I've been up to Mona Dam to walk around the dam. I've been into various shops and shopping centers and so forth, and to various beaches. So I'm giving you my experience of the Caribbean, being here in Jamaica since 18th of October. But I'm going to take you on a journey. There's a lot of... Mr. Gavin, I'm going to... Yeah? So what do I need to do? This is better? Is that okay? Right, okay, all right. So I'm going to take you on a journey over the next about hour and a half, and you might need to have some questions you want to ask of me, but please leave them till the very end so it doesn't break my train of thought, okay? So here it starts. And one other thing to mention, this whole journey that I've been on, in this particular case, is self-funded. Although I do work as a volunteer for the National Health Service in Birmingham, it is out of my own money that I decided Jamaica needs me. I'm coming here to give back to Jamaica some of what. And diabetes is a major issue in Jamaica. I'll be highlighting that quite a lot, and why it all came about. Some of my batchmates organized back in the lockdown, me doing a webinar, seminar, Zoom, and that was when people said, you need to come to Jamaica. You really need to come here and enlighten people about how you managed to do this in such a positive way. And I was doing webinars in Barbados and Africa and America and Canada. And Barbados also said, we need you here. So me as a Jamaican going to Barbados to enlighten them. But more on that. So here we start. Why is that not showing in the whole screen? You won't be able to see that. Oh, it's there now. Thank you. I'm the world's biggest technophobe. I don't do technology, okay? I leave that to the 3, 4, 5-year-olds. They know so much about it. My days, it was Slate, if you remember Slate, and exercise book. You remember those? I'm going back, so technology and me don't agree. You'll soon get my sense of humor. It will come out. So, although it says your diabetes strategic patient partner, that is a mouthful. So basically, I say I'm a diabetes ambassador or diabetes advocate or activist, any of those. My strapline or my motto is, our health is our wealth. That's my motto. Our health is our wealth. And as it was said, I am a volunteer, not a paid person, a volunteer with the National Health Service, Birmingham and Solihull Integrated Care System. I don't intend to say anything about the fire escapes and so on, but one thing I will say, please, of the 5 things mentioned there, please switch your mobile phone off or put it on silencer. If I had a pound, or I'm in Jamaica, a Jamaican dollar, for every time the phone went off, trust me, I would be a millionaire by now, okay? So put them on silencer. But you also are going to see a lot of images coming up on the screens which you will want to take. So have them available, ready to take snapshots. Don't take snapshots of me. I'm ugly as sin. You need to take snapshots of what's up there, okay? I start with a disclaimer, and it is very important to mention this disclaimer. I am not a healthcare professional. So I'm not a diabetic nurse. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a healthcare professional, but I'm going to leave with you on this journey my lived experience, my reality of what it is like for 19 years this Christmas living with this medical condition. Straight away, some of you might say he called it a medical condition. In the Caribbean and in the States, it is always referred to as a non-communicable disease or an acute disease. When I was trained back in England, I was told, never call it a disease, call it a medical condition. So it's simply the same thing, but I'm using the British terminology, okay? Now, that's me as a cheeky little boy. My mother took that photograph many, many years ago, and you can see why it's cold. It's either a cardigan, a jumper, or a sweater. England cold, pure and simple, okay? And that was me playing some jigsaw back then in the day. And then she decided at an early age with my father to send me back to the land of their birth, Jamaica, while they stayed back in Britain. So I came and went to a little district called Whitehall, 9 miles from Morant Whitehall, a district in St. Thomas, and grew up with my grand-aunt, who was a teacher at the Whitehall Primary School, my grand-uncle, who had a massive farm, so he was into plantation and farming, and my grandmother, okay? But as a child growing up, age 8, 9, 10, 11, in Whitehall, starting from the top, working down, I saw relatives of mine who were blind, beg your pardon, who had strokes, relatives of mine who had strokes, who were blind, who had heart attacks, who had kidney failure, necessitating them having to go from the country area into Kingston to go onto the dialysis machine. Also, relatives of mine who had lower limb amputations, chopping off of toes and feet. And finally, relatives of mine who in their 50s, 60s, 70s died prematurely. Now, let me see if I'm amongst the Jamaican audience. Gone too? I am amongst the Jamaican audience. When I say this in Britain, in some audiences, people say, I've been doing this for 10.5 years, people say, gone too quickly. I say, no, you don't come from Jamaica. Gone too soon, we say, okay? Throughout the presentation, I am not just going to speak in perfect English. I will be breaking out into the real raw Jamaican language so that you understand me and you get me and get where I'm coming from, okay? I make no apologies for that. We are multilingual in that sense, or bilingual. Having seen all these relatives of mine with all these medical conditions and what happened to them, I then went on, as you heard was said, to micro. I taught at Holy Childhood High School, Dunrobin High School, and Pembroke Hall High School. Then left for England, 1979, going about my merry life. And I used to run in the National Stadium for boys' champs for Happy Grove High School and Micro Teachers College and youth clubs. Then, 19 years ago this Christmas, my wife noticed the 4 key symptoms that I might have type 2 diabetes. They are referred to as the 4 T's. T for tired, T for toilet, T for thirsty, and T for thinner, losing weight. So tired, toilet, thirsty, thinner. I was displaying all 4 of those symptoms, and back then, 19 years ago, getting up in the night 3 or 4 times to go to the toilet. And my wife kept saying, something's wrong with you, something's wrong with you, something's wrong with you. I noticed quite a lot of men in this room, and then of course the women might have spouses or fathers or grandfathers or uncle. Most men are in denial. Most men are not in touch with their feelings. Most men are not in touch with their emotions. Most men do not do doctors. And I'll put my hand up and say, I was one of those men. Because I could take the nagging, and she's heard me speak on television, radio, all over the place, and she says, yes, I was nagging you. I could take it no more. I went with a vial of urine before any breakfast to the doctor, and the doctor put the thing in the screen and said, so you're Mr. Kelly? I said, yes, I am. She said, the records show, this is 19 years ago, the records show you have not been down to the surgery here for 8 years. I held my head down in shame. But she said, okay, you brought the urine, and she put the whatever in it and held it up to the light, and it changed color, and she said, you have glucose or sugar, it's the same thing in your urine, and there's supposed to be none. But she said, for a definitive answer, final answer, I'm going to send off a sample of your blood to the lab, and that will give me a more accurate answer. So that was done, and this Christmas coming, as I said, is 19 years I've had this condition and lived with it without taking any medication whatsoever. I had a choice to make, having realized I've now been diagnosed with type 2. And remember I said earlier, all these relatives. So it's hereditary. It runs in my family. So I had a choice. Do I still eat 6, 7, 8, 9 tablespoons of rice and peas, which me love? Or do I make the behavioral or lifestyle changes to keep the complications at bay? And that is, I chose the latter, which is making the changes. And that is why I've lived with this condition and can look you all in the eye and say, I've never taken medication. And as long as I live and God is on my side, you'll soon find out what it is that I do to keep the complications at bay, okay? I should have said at the very start, and I completely forgot to mention her, and I am going to. She doesn't like the limelight, but I have known Reverend Leslie Husang and Sheila Husang for over 50 years. They came to do the United Theological College training in Whitehall, St. Thomas, and we've remained friends ever since. And I have to big up Sheila because she got this event here for me. She also got the one at Harborview, because we're Anglican as well, at the St. Boniface, and she also got the one at Bull Bay. So big up, give her a round of applause for me, please. I've been to 7 parishes all around the country, and I was determined to not make this, just like in London, London seems to be the center of the universe. I didn't want Kingston to be the center of the universe, which is why I went out into the country areas, St. Mary, Clarendon, St. Catherine, etc., to also deliver these events. So moving swiftly on, now, I take great pride in showing that picture. As a child growing up in a middle-class family with a teacher and a man, granduncle who had a big plantation, boys were never allowed into the kitchen. Every time anybody in the household made a beeline for the kitchen, my granny would be at the door. She'd say, go take your book. That's exactly what she would say to me, go take your book. So it's only girls who were allowed into the kitchen. I never learned to cook. So I went to university, I went to college, and I'll be honest with you, I couldn't even boil an egg. It was as bad as that. So my wife and my daughter, especially my daughter, she said, this has got to stop. Here you are, you come home probably earlier than my wife, who is a primary school teacher, and my daughter, comes home, and I'm lording it and sitting back, waiting on them to do the cooking. So for Christmas 2008, Abigail, our daughter, gave me a particular Christmas present. It was 15 Caribbean cookery classes all the way over in Boldmere, which is the other side of Birmingham, if you know Birmingham at all. There's me in my pinny or apron or whatever you want to call it, learning to cook. And I'm going to stress, we need to go back to basics and get youngsters and children and teenagers to learn to cook. Ask yourself the question and answer it. Who do you think in the Kelly household is the best cook? Come on, engage with me. Me, moi, okay? And also remember, without being sexist, some of the best chefs are what gender? Men, exactly. So I went on this journey, I've been to just one school. I can never get the first name right, but Abanath Gallimore, Abatnath, yes, it's a very strange name. But I went there and I did one of the sessions that I'm doing here today. And I asked them, all 4 formers, and I said, does the curriculum include boys learning home economics, cookery? And I was told, yes, it does. And I thought, yeah, because in our day of growing up, going to high school and primary school, boys were shunted to go and do woodwork. You remember that? Woodwork and industrial arts. And girls were, it was a gender thing. Girls had to go into the home economics and bake and cook and so on. I just hope that all the schools in Jamaica now make sure boys cook. I won't dwell on that anymore, okay? So that's me in my kitchen. I big up the National Health Service. Some of you might have actually been in Britain at some stage or another. It's called the NHS for short, but it's the National Health Service. When the Second World War ended, after 1939 to 1945, Britain was devastated by the war because the Germans came and bombed Britain, and they also came and bombed even Coventry Cathedral, Hitler and his lot. So, some of you might remember the slogan, your country needs you. So people came from Britain to Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean and asked for people to come and help to build up Britain. So some came as people sweeping the streets. Some came as clippies, or what we call bus conductors. Some came as drivers, and some came in other sorts of professions. My aunt in the middle, in 1952, before a lot of you, including me, in this room were born, came from Bath, St. Thomas, Jamaica, to train as a nurse in London. The one on the left is the only black person with a lot of white people around. That happens to be my mother. She also joined from Bath, St. Thomas, Jamaica, to train as a nurse, and we're talking state-registered nurse. It didn't end there. A third sister came from Bath, St. Thomas, Aunt Yvonne, to also train as a nurse in London. So, some people said to me, Tony, why you have to big up your family? Now, let me put it plain and straight. It's about changing the narrative. Black people helped to build up Britain. And if I can't put them up there, where must I put them? So what I do, especially when the National Health Service each year celebrates its anniversary, and you see pure white people in the nursing times, or the this or the that, and they completely brush us out as black people. I make sure to send those images to the media and say, use them. I am bigging up my family. And if you have people in that position who have helped to build up the Britain that is now, you are supposed to be doing the same. I make no qualms and no apologies for doing that, although some people say I shouldn't. So that's me helping to, and also when I do this in schools and colleges and so on, it's about history. They need to know that they had a part to play. The youngsters won't know this, okay? You will see the term hard to reach community. If you want to write it down, and then you go and you look it up, you'll see about 15, 16 pages on the websites about hard to reach communities. Now, when I go to these events, these August events, you will hear them talking about hard to reach communities. So I stop the professors and the consultants and the doctors, some of them in their tracks, and say, could you explain to me, who are these hard to reach communities? This is what they said to me. The black Africans, the black Caribbeans, the Asians, and the white working class. I have a ready-made answer for them. I say, are they in the jungle? Are they on Mars? Are they on Jupiter? Are they on the Mount Himalayas? Here now I'd say, are they on the Blue Mountain, which I climbed to the very top before I left here in 1979? If they're at any of those places I've mentioned, yes, they would be hard to reach. But please don't be patronizing, condescending, insensitive, or offensive, or possibly racist by referring to black people as hard to reach. I'm not prepared for that. So don't. I do 150 community events since my early retirement, 30 years in the probation service, as a senior probation officer, then a senior probation officer. And I knock on gurdwaras, mosques, churches, temples, residential homes, office blocks. And some people will say to me, well, are you medically qualified? And I said, no, I'm not. But I would like to come and share with you my lived experience, my reality of having this medical condition, diabetes. And once I get my foot in the door, some churches, gurdwaras, temples, mosques, have me back up to 3 times a year. So I'm expecting this church will invite me back probably next year. You're going to have to pay me fare, though. I mean, I'll pay my own fare to come next time. I've set the trend, and a lot of the places I've been to say, gosh, Tony, the way we get you. We get exactly where you're coming from. we are going to try and get you back here again and again. I'd gladly come. So I don't do hard to reach, as I said. So instead of saying hard to reach, say things like historically neglected, historically ignored, say marginalized or underserved. Any of those words are far better ways to describe us as black people, more than calling us hard to reach. Historically neglected, historically ignored, marginalized or underserved. Okay? Now, let me engage you. My well-known saying, if Muhammad can't go to the mountain must go where? To Muhammad. So that's what I do. So let me tell you something. I don't go to hospitals, clinics, or health centers or surgeries. The people at those places are already there for a reason. So I will go to the barber shop. I'll go to the hairdressers. I'll go to where they're playing the football or where they're playing the cricket or the fair or the track. Places where I know people will congregate. The rum bar. Think of Jesus when he came on earth. Jesus didn't go into the temple. Jesus went into the marketplace and on the beaches where he could go and find people to try and become Christians. Don't get me wrong, men are Jesus, okay? But having said that, I do go, I think outside the box. I think creatively and go to places where, I'll go to the place where they're buying the whole heap of fast food. I'll go there as well and say, here's my card. I always have my cards on me, and I wear all of these fleeces. I have a lot of them. So 30,000 feet in the air in an airplane. Coming from England, 5 people on the airplane all stopped me and asked me, who are you? I said, a diabetes ambassador, and here's my card. And some of them have actually ended up coming to my events. So moving swiftly on. Diabetes now. Those are the top 10 countries where diabetes is rampant. The top 10 countries in the world, starting with China, India, United States, Pakistan, Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia, Germany, Egypt, and Bangladesh. Now, some people immediately said to me, in the 10.5 years I've been doing this training, they have never seen a fat Chinese man or Chinese woman. Then on the whole, they're not very fat. If you have the idea in your cranium, your brain or wherever, or thought, that it's only fat people, overweight people, or obese people who can develop this medical condition, you are to get that outside of your brain. I'm going to take you on a journey which will show people who, in plain and simple language, are mager, can also develop this medical condition. Are you with me? Right, okay? So, notice within the top 10, there are 5 Asian countries in the top 10. China, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, and Bangladesh. Sometimes, I told you I'll get $1 or £1, and another will go off soon, but sometimes, sometimes, before I put up this slide, sometimes I ask my audience, because as I said, I do 150 community engagements per year, and all over the world as well, but sometimes I said to my audience in Britain, name me one of the top 10 countries. You know which country they all want to name? Jamaica. Jamaica. And then when I show them, I say, 3 million people live in Jamaica. Look at the one in the top 10th position, 8.4 million. So, although Jamaica isn't in the top 10, Jamaica has a major problem with diabetes. Major, major, major. I'm not going to bore you with stats and figures. It is prevalent here, and it is getting worse. It is increasing. And it's about time we wake up and smell the coffee or the roses. We've got to, as a nation of people, address it. And that's why I'm here doing these events, okay? So, we're going to move on. That just shows you every ethnic group under the sun who can get diabetes. There's no escape from any ethnic group. White people, African people, Asian people, and Asian is Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. All ethnic groups can get it. But some are more prone or susceptible to getting it than others. In 2021, diabetes worldwide, let's look at diabetes worldwide. In 2021, is it estimated that 537 million people had this medical condition, diabetes. However, by 2030, it is going to rise to 643 million. Now, I want you to stick a pin there, because some people said to me, Tony, that's far away. Kindly cast your mind back to the millennium, 1999 to 2000. May I ask you, what year are we in now? Come on. 2022. You see how time has flown? So 2030 is not that far away. Then you go on back to the figures, if I bring it up. It says by 2045, and God spare our lives, some of us might still be around then, the figures are going to go up to 783 million people. It is a major, it's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic. Just like how we had the coronavirus or what have you, and the COVID-19, diabetes is rampant worldwide. At the bottom, which you can't see, but because I do this so often, I know it off by heart. I'll put this down so you get the picture. Every 8 seconds, somebody in the world dies from diabetes complications. Every 8 seconds. And I'm sure if we look at the deaths from COVID and coronavirus last year, I don't think it had reached as much as the figure mentioned there, which is 6.7 million. 6.7 million people between the ages of 20 and 79 died from diabetes complications last year alone. That is a lot. And you heard me say at the beginning, premature death, gone too soon, when I was growing up in the 60s back in Whitehall, St. Thomas. This is why it's big in Britain. That figure is now totally out of date. It says 5 million. It is closer to 6 million people in the United Kingdom have diabetes. Admittedly, the population in Britain is around about 65 million. So some people might say 6 million is a drop in the ocean. As far as I'm concerned, 1 million is too much, let alone 6 million nearly. And it says at the bottom, and I want you to take this on board, around 1 million people in Britain have diabetes. I'll explain the difference between type 1 and type 2 in a minute. But 1 million people, we reckon, estimated, are walking around with this medical condition and don't even know that they have it. And this is where I'm going to say to you loud and clear. Some of you might drive a Benz, or a BMW, or a Volvo, or a Fiat, or a Panda. You normally take your car to get it MOT tested, to make sure the brakes work, and it have oil in the engine, and it have water, and all the various things it have. I'm saying to you loud and clear, your car that you drive is a piece of junk. Even if it's the Volvo or the Porsche or the Benz, it's still a piece of junk or a piece of metal. Your body, given to you by Jah, Jehovah, Allah, God, whoever you worship, is far more important to you than that car. Do you agree with me? So I'm saying to you, there are lots of people in here who probably in years haven't gone to get their health checks done. When you leave here today, you're going to go to your hospital or health center or clinic or your GP, and you're going to say to them, you met a young man. Notice the word young man from England. And he says, I must come because I'm more prone, more susceptible as a black person to getting this medical condition. And your children and your grandchildren, and you need to have your yearly health checks. In Britain, we have this problem. Want it, can't get it, and get it, no want it. I have to be constantly going on the radio and television and doing events and saying to the black people, the National Health Service in Britain is totally free. In the States and in a lot of Caribbean countries like Jamaica, you have to pay and go and see your doctor. But having said that, I've been told you also can go into a health clinic or a health center and get your bloods done. Is that correct? Well, I beg you to start doing that. Your health is your wealth. It's the most important thing you have. And just like how you do the car, make it it should be just like following straight on. You go yearly. And don't let any doctor, and I say this, I know the doctors in the house, But some doctors back in England have told various people, oh, you're slim, you look okay. We won't bother to send off for your blood test. That is wrong. They can't look at you. They don't have x-ray vision to look at you and say, well, you're fine. They must send off a sample of your blood to realize whether you're pre or border or have the condition already. Are you with me? Right. So it's more than doubled. In 1998, it was just about 1.4. 20 years later, it's doubled to 3.8. And here we are in 2022, with now nearly 6 million people in Britain. This is why it's big. 90% of people with diabetes have type 2. Remember that. 90% of people have type 2. 8% have type 1. Then to bring it up to 100%, there is 2% of people who have rarer types of diabetes, which because I'm not medically qualified, I cannot speak to those 2%. But they're very much in the minority. This is where I'm going to show you. You won't be able to see it, but I'm going to explain it to you. There are wards in Birmingham, and there are wards where diabetes is way more prevalent than Leafy, Harborne, Leafy, Selyoak, Leafy, Bourneville. The areas where it is prevalent, by the graph, are inner city or impoverished or deprived areas. I would put the equivalent of those being Rima, Concrete Jungle, Trenchtown, Tivoli, okay? Let me explain to you why diabetes is prevalent in those areas that I've just mentioned. And then I'll come on to the Jamaican experience in a minute. In those areas, every single or every other shop that you pass is a fast food, takeaway, or what we in Britain call junk food. And this is where I'm going to. I've been down, going with friends. Some of them are in the audience here. They take me places. I was told after my first presentation not to mention the takeaways. But you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say I was in St. Anne the other day, and my friends who I was with said, look at that long line. And I said, what for? They're going to get the Saturday dinner or the Sunday dinner. The line long from here down to the end of the road and back. I'm asking you to stop doing that. You are storing a problem. You might think, oh, this tastes nice. I have to say, this particular brand of chicken, I have to admit, I've had it in the past in Canada and in America and here, and I've had it in Britain. I have to say, in fairness, this country does, I'm not going to mention the name of the chicken, but you know what I'm talking about. It does the best of all the ones. Okay? You can mention it. I'm not going to mention it because I'm being recorded. However, if you're going to have it, as far as I'm concerned, that should be no more than 3 or 4 times per year. So all of those who are going every Sunday to have it, you have got to stop doing it. It is not doing your body in the long run no good. Are you with me? I know I'm touching on people's cons here at this moment in time. There might be some conscious and guilty people. If you want diabetes, stay away from them sort of fast food, junk food, etc. A friend of mine took me up to Sovereign Plaza, and I went to Manor Park, and it's the same on a Saturday. Let me tell you, from me growing up, and even to this day, there's something called Saturday soup. You with me? And every Saturday in our household, you peel a pumpkin, and you do this, and even when you're doing the flour, you don't just do white flour dumpling. You put cornmeal in the flour dumpling. White flour on its own is doing your body no good, okay? So go back to basics and start teaching the children to eat healthily. I'm not done yet. Me just a warm up, you know, okay? So, moving on, diabetes is serious. It affects every single part of the body. So those people back in St. Thomas who used to say, oh, they have a touch of diabetes. When I asked what's the matter with them, touch of diabetes, they minimized, trivialized, or downplayed this very, very serious condition. Let me take you through them. Every week in Britain, diabetes leads to 500 premature deaths. Every single week in Britain. Not every 2 weeks, not every month, not every 6 months. Every week. Every week in Britain, there are 176 lower limb amputations, cutting off of toes and feet from this medical condition. Every week in Britain, there are 680 strokes from this medical condition, diabetes, 550 heart attacks, and 2,000 cases of heart failure from diabetes only. Diabetes is also the leading cause of preventable sight loss or avoidable sight loss of people of working age in the United Kingdom. Now I'm going to put this down and just explain to you the sight loss issue. Some people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s start squinting at the television and not seeing it properly, start squinting at the words on their phone or the printed material. And a lot of people, and it's all to do with cultural myths, seem to think that if I'm not seeing the print properly, it's because of my age. Somebody in their 40s, 50s, 60s should be, I don't think so. Let me tell you what's happening. Those people, and if you notice any of your relatives squinting, take them to an optician. It is the diabetes having its wicked way at the back of your eyes. It's called diabetic retinopathy screening. So I don't wear glasses at all, but every year I have to go to the optician. They put drops in my eyes, then they use a camera and they take the lens from all over the eyes. They send it off to the lab, and it comes back saying, Mr. Kelly, Tony, your eyesight is perfect. There's no diabetic retinopathy forming at the back of your eyes. That is when, if it's there and not corrected, blurred vision sets in. 4 years ago, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine took me to Barbados, and I went to all the places in Barbados. I was on the radio station a lot, and everybody called up, can we speak to the doctor from England? I said, no, there's no doctor from England. It's a patient here. But what was happening in Barbados is they were not, beg your pardon, not Barbados, in Dominica, get it right, Tony, Dominica, I don't want to give you false information. They were not aware, and they've now since gone and trained a lot of nurses and a lot of the opticians and the ophthalmologists, I can never say that word. They have actually trained them to start detecting what's happening at the back of the eye. So many people have said to me, Tony, it's not during my, it's when I went to see my optician. They wear glasses. People said that to me in Britain. And when I went for my eye checkup, the doctor said, I think you need to go and get a blood test done at your GP because there's something I not like. And the optician sends them to the GP, and the GP says, I'm afraid you already have type 2 diabetes, okay? Which, if caught early, the whole issue of the blurred vision, because Dominica has more blind people than any other country in the Caribbean. That is fact from diabetes. I'll also tell you at the same breath, Barbados, which has a 99 point something literacy rate, has more lower limb amputations from diabetes than any other Caribbean country. You can look it up if you don't believe me. With Jamaica, Jamaica have more of every blessed thing. This, that, the other, heart attack, strokes, what have you. So moving swiftly on, diabetes is expensive. I hope I haven't, no, yes, I didn't. Someone is diagnosed, this is important, this is back in Britain, I'm telling you the British context. Someone is diagnosed with diabetes every 2 minutes in the United Kingdom. Every 2 minutes, somebody gets a diagnosis of diabetes. Now, it's expensive. Some of you are Christian and probably don't do the lotto or lottery. But some of you might. And you might have won 10 million Jamaican dollars, which is not a lot of money these days. That doesn't say 10 million. Please cast your eyes over there. It says about 10 billion pounds is spent by the National Health Service on this one medical condition. There are some countries in the world that do not have that amount of money as their gross domestic product. And here we are in Britain spending 10 billion pounds on diabetes alone. 1/10 of the whole of the National Health Service budget, or 1 million pounds every single hour. And now I'm going to show you a 2-minute video while I get some water. So it should come up.
There are two main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2.
Sorry, help me, help.
Conditions, but they're both
Is this on?
serious. There are some
But don't the technology. So somebody needs to come. You know. Huh? So I'm going to start it again, but you need to put that mic near to where the thing is. Oops. No, I've gone one too many. Bear with me. Oh, God. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Oh, God. Right, okay, so let me start again. You know where the sound is?
There are two main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. They're different conditions, but they're both serious. There are some other rarer types of diabetes too. What all types of diabetes have in common is that they cause people to have too much glucose in their blood. But we all need some glucose. It's what gives us our energy. We get glucose when our bodies break down the carbohydrates that we eat or drink, and that glucose is released into our blood. We also need a hormone called insulin. It's made by our pancreas, and it's insulin that allows the glucose in our blood to enter our cells and fuel our bodies. If you don't have diabetes, your pancreas senses when glucose has entered your bloodstream and releases the right amount of insulin so the glucose can get into your cells. But if you have diabetes, this system doesn't work. When you've got type 1 diabetes, you can't make any insulin at all. If you've got type 2 diabetes, it's a bit different. The insulin you make either can't work effectively or you can't produce enough of it. In both types of diabetes, because glucose can't get into your cells, it begins to build up in your blood. And too much glucose in your blood causes a lot of different problems. To begin with, it leads to diabetes symptoms like having to wee a lot, being incredibly thirsty and feeling very tired. You may also lose weight, get infections like thrush, or suffer from slow-healing wounds. Over a long period of time, high glucose levels in your blood can seriously damage your heart, your eyes, your feet, and your kidneys. These are known as the complications of diabetes. But with the right treatment and care, people can live a healthy life. And there's much less risk that someone will experience these complications. If you've got diabetes, you can find lots of information and support about living with it using our website and helpline. As well as campaigning for everyone with diabetes to get the right care, Diabetes UK fund research into all types of diabetes so we can develop new treatments and one day find a cure. You can find out more about type 1 and type 2 diabetes and how they're treated in our next.
Heard? Am I being heard? Right. If you want to see that video, please go to the Diabetes UK website. It is permanently there for you to show your relatives, your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues at work. That encapsulates what this condition is in 2 minutes. It's a very, very good video. But I'm going to recap just in case people don't understand what was being said or they need to hear it again. First of all, I'm going to mention 4 people who have type 1. 4 people who have type 1 diabetes. Remember I said only 8% of people have type 1. The person who does the voiceover in that is a TV presenter called Philip Schofield. He has type 1 diabetes. The next person I'll mention to you is Theresa May, who was once Prime Minister of Britain. She has type 1 diabetes. The third person I'm going to mention to you is Sir Stephen Redgrave. He'd been knighted. He won 5 Olympic gold medals on the trot for rowing for Great Britain. he has type 1 diabetes. And the fourth person I'll mention, I'll leave it there, the well-known black American actress Halle Berry has type 1 diabetes. Now, let me just go through what is type 1. We all have, just below the rib cage here, not far from the belly button, a 6-inch gland, sort of like a leaf, 6 inches in length. It is called the pancreas. The pancreas makes insulin. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, without insulin, you will die. You can live without any hair upon your head, or any eyes, or not any feet, or not have no teeth in your mouth. You cannot survive without insulin. Insulin, made by the pancreas, regulates the food that we eat and drink that goes around the body. Are you with me? Come on, are you with me? Right. So, in type 1, and to this day, no medical person knows why the pancreas decides to stop working altogether. Not to do with age, ethnicity, size, height, anything. That's type 1, 8%. So people with type 1 have to, this is what they have to do, each and every day, 3 times a day, some might do it 2 or 3 or some 4, they have to use an injection pen with insulin in it and inject the insulin into this area. That is fact. If they don't do that, they will die. That's type 1. Some people also, with type 1, instead of doing that, they strap a pump onto their body and it drips the insulin slowly to keep them alive. And then when I go to schools and colleges, they say, "Sir, Mr. Kelly, can they have a shower or a bath?" I say, yes, they can take the insulin pump off, have their shower or their bath, but when they finish, they have to put it back on. That is type 1, but only 8% have type 1, okay? Type 2, remember I said 90% of people have type 2, such as myself. That is when the pancreas is either not making enough insulin or what it is making is not doing its job properly. It can be hereditary, running in the family. It can be to do with the size of the person, either too meager or very fat and obese. And therefore, we need to look at that. But some people, get this very clearly in your head, there's no known cure for diabetes, but some people lead such a disciplined life that they're able to reverse the diabetes or it goes into remission. But should they go back to eating unhealthily and not doing enough physical activity, and I will never use the word exercise in my presentation. If you hear me use it, come up here and slap me, okay? Physical activity and not eating properly, what will happen is that from the remission that they went into, or having reversed the diabetes, it will return if they start eating badly and so forth. So that's type 1 and type 2. And you know who we have to give God praise and thanks for? The 14th of November every year is World Diabetes Day. It is the birthday of Sir Frederick Banting. I've been to where he did his thing in Canada a few years ago. Sir Frederick Banting, a Canadian doctor, along with his, this is all on the internet, if you don't believe what I'm saying, along with his medical student Charles Best, notice a maga dog outside. Not slim dog, maga dog. I'm amongst my Jamaican people, so they know what we're talking about. They made this concoction, what we call artificial or man-made, and I'm afraid it was man-made, mainly, it wasn't woman-made, okay? So artificial, it's my sense of humor, you soon get it. But artificial or man-made insulin, they made it, injected it into that meager dog. So when you go on any of these mastermind programs or quiz shows, and they ask you, who discovered penicillin? You say Alexander Fleming. Who discovered insulin? Sir Frederick Banting. And this year, the 14th of November, is the 101st year when he discovered that. But of course, since then, it has been made much better and is much more than when he first produced it. So Some people with type 2 also have to inject insulin to keep them alive. Others have to go on a drug. There are several drugs, but the most popular one over the years has been metformin. So some have to go on metformin. And others, like me, in terms of my lifestyle, I try to keep myself so fit and healthy to keep the complications at bay. Am I making that crystal clear? Is that understood? Right. I don't know if I did say at the beginning that any questions you have, leave them to the end. I might have said it, I can't remember. But so that's the difference between type 1 and type 2. So if you see somebody with type 1, don't tell them it's to do with their diet or how big they are or small they are or their ethnicity. That just happens. The tired, the toilet, the thirsty, the thinner, the blurred vision, the slow healing of cuts and wounds happens very, very quickly. And the organs start packing in and they have to go to the doctor, and then the doctor decides, oh my gosh, I'm afraid you have type 1. You've got to go on insulin. Type 2 creeps upon you gradually. And I'm going to come on to a slide now which tells you age is a major factor. So some of us who think we're immortal, invisible, and nothing's going to happen to us, and we're in our 20s, you're going to see a slide which tells you what age black people start developing diabetes. So age is a factor. Family history, as in my case, hereditary. Ethnicity is a factor in terms of for black people and also for Asian people. Come on to that in a bit. Weight is a factor. If you're carrying too much weight, it can end up you getting diabetes. Waist circumference is a factor. And then some of the issues which happen as a result. Apart from what I said, the tired, toilet, thirsty, thinner, blurred vision, slow healing of wounds. Another thing that happens, some men have so much blood glucose or blood sugar in their system that they are unable to have an erection in order to make love to their partner. It is called erectile dysfunction. So if you know of anybody in that situation, it might be an issue that diabetes is there, blood glucose and blood sugar is impacting why the penis keeps flopping instead of being erect. Are you understanding that? Right. Heart attacks is an issue, which was mentioned earlier. Strokes is an issue. I mean, I even have to talk about high blood pressure because black people suffer from high blood pressure more than any other ethnic group around. High blood pressure, or what is sometimes called hypertension, the same thing. I'm going to come back to that in a bit. High cholesterol, and I'll give you one tip for high cholesterol straight away. You saw at the beginning where my 3 relatives, my mother and her 2 sisters, were nurses back in England. One of the best things for high cholesterol, eat oats porridge. Oats porridge is very good for you. I know you have the Fosca oats and the Quaker oats, but I would rather go to the health stores where they have a more rougher type oats, because the Fosca and the Quaker oats are a bit too refined. But going to the health stores where you can get the more coarse type oats, you have oats for breakfast, have oats porridge. It fills you up. You're not snacking, and every minute you're wanting something to eat. And it lowers your cholesterol. Try that. I beg you, it really does work. Then, now I start giving out some goodie bags. I'd rather the doctors and nurses who are, and I know there's some in here, don't answer. The lay people, so to speak. What is gestational diabetes? Shout it out. Who said that? Who over there said that? You did. In pregnancy. Could you pass that to her, please? Remember, I don't want the doctors and nurses in the audience to answer, because they should know this. And if they don't know it, then they must go to the bottom of the class. Okay? Gestational diabetes is not type 1. It's not type 2. It is some women during the pregnancy, and only during the pregnancy, they develop this condition called gestational diabetes, because it is happening during the gestation period. Are you with me? As soon as they've had the baby or babies, it disappears, just goes. But what it is saying to that mother is she is at future risk later in life of developing type 2 diabetes. And the baby or babies she's had are also at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So they have to be extra careful. Now again, I don't want the doctors to get involved or the nurses. Let me see if there's any real bright spark in here who can tell me what is, and before I say it, I go to a lot of conferences back in Britain and abroad. And the doctors and nurses who go to Oxford and Cambridge and all these top universities, and they come and speaking to the common people, and I say to them, excuse me, speak the language of the people. What you're talking about impaired glucose regulation. Now let me see if any bright spark in here knows, not the doctors and nurses, as I said, what is impaired glucose regulation? Have a go. Have a try. Sorry? When the pancreas is stopped? No. Somebody else want to try? You're not getting enough? Nearly there. Yeah? Sorry? Bad vision. A lot of people seem to think impaired, and I get that all the time, it's to do with bad vision. Let me explain to you, if you go to your doctor and your GP, and they say to you, or your nurse, you are borderline diabetes. You're on the border. You're on the cusp of a wave, or you're pre. The prefix pre, P-R-E, means before. It simply means you have not yet gotten the medical condition. That's what impaired glucose regulation means. You are pre-diabetes or borderline. And so many people in the 10.5 years I've been doing this come up to me afterwards and whisper, Mr. Kelly, you know, my doctor did tell me I'm pre-diabetes 3 years ago or 18 months ago. I look them straight in the eye and I say, what have you done about it? I mean, I do nothing. I feel like slap them. Because if you get told you are pre-diabetic or borderline, I am begging you, make the lifestyle changes and do something about it so the condition doesn't end up coming your way. Because once you have the diabetes, try and get rid of it. I did say a few people managed to go into remission or reverse it, but not many. Are you with me? Next then, on the same page, if I bring it up again, oops, sorry. Why is it not coming up? Right, sorry. So impaired glucose regulation, you now know what that is, pre-diabetes or borderline. Now, some people have various diseases. I won't bother to name all the diseases. And the healthcare professionals put them on steroids. I am not saying at this point in time, any of you, when you hear this bit, must suddenly go get yourself off steroids. You have to do it under medical supervision. But some people are on very strong steroids or are on steroids for a long time. They develop not type 1, not type 2, not gestational diabetes, steroid-induced diabetes because of the effects that the steroid has had on the pancreas. Okay? So they need to be mindful. But not only them. Bodybuilders, whether they be men or women, a lot of bodybuilders, men or women, tend to, you might see them 1 week and they're this size, and in 2 weeks' time you see them and they're like the Incredible Hulk. A lot of these men and women doing bodybuilding don't do it the natural way, whereby they do over weeks and weeks and weeks and build up triceps and the biceps. They inject steroids into their body. That's a fact. A lot of bodybuilders do that. If you see any of them doing that, or you see them and suddenly they bulk up, so ask them, just go up and ask them, how you manage to get yourself so quickly to that level? The steroids that they use can end up giving them steroid-induced diabetes, which they won't get rid of. They will not get rid of it. They have it then for life. Are you with me? Right, okay. I hope I'm not scaring you. No. I'm just telling you the facts. And I hope the doctors and nurses are also of the view that what I'm doing is correct. Ethnicity. People from African, Caribbean, and South Asian backgrounds are 2 to 4 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes than white people. That is a fact. And people say, why? Notice the age. And I'm sure some of you in here have children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews. We start getting diabetes from age 25. And there are not many people in here who are under age 25 apart from the children. Although some people have, even well over age 25. But the point is, we as black people start getting diabetes from age 25. White people start getting diabetes 15 years later at age 40. There it is on that slide. Okay? So, it's a wake-up call for us here. We need to go get our health checks because we're well over the age of 25. Now, some people said to me, Tony, why is that so? It's to do with our genetics or our DNA or our metabolism, any of those words. And I'm going to explain to you that crystal clearly why our genes, genetics, DNA. Some of you might know Professor Sir Hilary Beckles. Please look up what he has to say about this on YouTube. Our forefathers, and I agree exactly where he's coming from, our forefathers, foreparents, we were brought from the west coast of Africa as part of the slave trade route. The backer sitting on his veranda had lovely fresh fish and the lettuce and all the various salads and so on. We had salt beef, salt mackerel, salt pork, and salt fish. These were all the dishes. Remember, sun hot in Jamaica from way back slavery days. And what used to happen was they had to prepare this in bulk for the slaves. That has passed through the DNA, and we have inherited it. And of course, the whole heap of sugar cane that the slaves were out there eating in the field. Okay? So that is why there's this propensity for black people to also, because it's in the DNA, have genetics, DNA, metabolism. I've been to 3 places over here, because a lot of my friends have taken me out to restaurants or cooked at home and so on. Stew peas. The stew, and I've even had down at one of the parishes, Grants Pen, I think it was. I had jerk pork. Why is there so much salt on everything that I taste in Jamaica? Salt, salt, and more salt. It's way too much salt that's being used, which causes high blood pressure and hypertension, as we know, but it's also one of the issues in terms of diabetes. You have got to cut down on your salt consumption. I can't put it plainer than that. We don't use salt in the Kelly household back in Birmingham. We don't use salt, and I'll come back to it. So I'm going back to the DNA issue. We've inherited this lovely taste in our mouth. It's for salt and more salt, and that's why it's in our DNA, genetics, passed on from... Go and look up what Sir Hilary Beckles, he's put it even better than I have done. Please look it up, okay? As I said, environmental factors such as overcrowding can be an issue. Stress. If you're under a lot of stress, believe it or not, it can impact the pancreas and end up with you getting diabetes. Racism. Us as black people who live in these countries where racism is rampant, you have to know how to deal with racism. Because if you don't, you make it get the better of you, and then eventually it will impact the pancreas and you end up getting diabetes. So these are environmental factors: overcrowding, stress, racism. Poor diet, which is a major issue in Jamaica. Poor diet, and I'm going to come on to that in more detail. Then, of course, couch potato, sedentary lifestyle, sitting on our proverbial for most of the day. I am into, and you all should know about this thing called Jamaica Moves, movement. And you're going to see me do some things, and you're going to start doing them if you haven't been doing them before. So that's what affects black people and why we get diabetes from age 25 instead of age 40. Now, this is one which I'm going to show you. Some of you might remember the Miss World or the Miss Jamaica, and the perfect figure going down that catwalk. 36-inch bust, 24-inch waist, and a 36-inch hip. An hourglass figure. Anybody in here with a 24-inch waist, woman, would you mind standing, please? No takers? Okay. Well, let me tell you something. This is the score, and I have made these up. Now, only since I came to Jamaica, I use this all the time in the 10.5 years in Britain, and nobody has ever said anything. But over here, everywhere we go with it, they ask me, "You run duppy?" I have never heard that before. Never ever heard that. So I will be putting it into my British context and say, "Me now run duppy, but I have this here." I'm going to explain to you. Some women are bigger in size, and I accept that. I accept that some women are bigger in size. It clearly says not from your trouser size, from your belly button or navel string. All women, ideally, all women should aim for, and remember, come here, I'll ask you later, a waist size from the belly button of 31.5 inches. That is what it should be. Now, some people say to me, "Tony, we're into metric." Me know the metric at all, you know. If you tell me 2 centimeters, I haven't had a clue. If you said a person jumps 6 foot, I exactly can visualize what. So I'm old school, and I think a lot of us in here are old school, yards, feet, and inches. 31 inches equates to 79 centimeters for the more brighter ones, math buff, and the younger ones. All women. So if the woman is 44 inches, she now come realistic. She now come down to 31.5. But you're going to bring her down from 44 to about 42 or 40, because where's the pancreas? And if you have all of this fat round here, so, and as my daughter, when she comes on holiday, she always say, "Dad, how come the women in Jamaica so juicy?" Meaning that they are so big and they're so fat. I am telling you, you cannot have all this fat weight, this fat here. It is preventing the pancreas from what it should do naturally. Is that clear? Asian men, remember I'm going to ask you these later. Asian men are allowed, because they are more, you saw 5 Asian countries in the top 10. Asian men should aim for, ideally, 35 inches. However, yes, some Asian men, their belly big out here, so you need to say, well, okay, let's start working on you. So from the moment you get home tonight, you're going to get the tape measure, and you're going to measure your father or your spouse or your husband or whatever, or your brother. And you want them to bring it down from 46 to probably 44. And if they're 40, you want them to bring it down from 40 to 38. Allowing the pancreas to do what it should be doing naturally. Are you with me? I'm not hearing. Are you with me? White men and black men, we are allowed an extra 2 inches, bringing us to 37 inches. I remind you, not from the trouser size, from the belly button or navel string. Okay? Now, tofu, it says at the bottom, tofu, which is thin on the outside, fat on the inside. Some people are as mager or as slim as a rake and get diabetes. And then we say to you, and you say, but you have this perception in your head. You can't have diabetes. It's only fat people who have it, people overweight, morbidly obese, or so on. The fat is stored in is deposited in the liver and around the pancreas, although the person is skinny. Okay? So don't be too harsh on somebody who tells you they have it and they're small in size and you think, I lie them, I tell you. No, 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 no. Believe them. So going to the toilet, tired, toilet, thirsty, thinner, the 4 T's. Some people, because of the amount of blood glucose or blood sugar they have in their private areas, thrush and genital itching as an impact. I'm going to come back to slow healing of cuts and wounds. Blurred vision I've mentioned. Extreme tiredness, and some people have weight loss. But what I want you to do is together read the very last sentence at the bottom. Now, for a group which is probably nearly 40, that was read very, very thank you. I'm putting on my teaching hat. I want it read with gusto and feeling. Everybody, please. Now you can go to the top of the class. No tired, no toilet, no thirsty, no thinner, no blurred vision. It's called asymptomatic. They're not displaying any. And because they're not having their regular yearly medical checkup, when they finally start showing this or feeling tired or the blurred, by the time they get to the GP, the doctor, or the health clinic, it is way too late. The horse has bolted, and they then end up having to go on metformin or insulin. So I yet again stress, especially for the men, grab them kicking and screaming to the doctor for their medical checkup. Are you with me? Yeah. Right. So the people living with diabetes, it's not the issue of the diabetes that's the issue. Because I don't have an issue with it. I'll tell you something. 3 years ago, they had the 70th anniversary of the forming of the National Health Service. That's 3 or 4 years ago. And they said, who can we get to come and speak on BBC television to 7 million people? Who do you think them asked? Me. The first question the woman asked me on live television, so Mr. Kelly, you're a diabetes sufferer. Me just put myself up straight and I say, excuse me? I am not a diabetes sufferer. I am living with this medical condition. I am managing and controlling it. It is not managing or controlling me. You see the difference? There are people out there who definitely suffer. I saw the suffering firsthand back in Whitehall, St. Thomas, back in the 60s. But I'm not, if I can help it, prepared to go there. So I do all the right things in order to keep the complications at bay. Okay? So I'm not a sufferer. But people have eye disease, the blurred vision and the blindness, heart disease, cardiovascular, kidney disease, and also some have nerve disease. And nerve disease is, and I'll explain that quickly to you, is when they, no, I think I'll leave it till in a bit. I'll leave it. No, I better do it now. I might forget. Nerve disease. I have to go every single year to see my diabetic nurse. And then she says, look away, and I look away. And she said, put your foot up like that. And I put it up, and she says, did you feel that? And I said, no, I didn't, because you haven't touched me. And that's right. But then she uses a prong and touches all the extremities of my feet, both the heel and the toes and so on. People with diabetes have to have proper foot care. If their feet are not properly looked after, that is when the ulcers and sores come in and when they have to have the feet amputated. What may I beg you do? Please, I may say this in a plain patois, may I beg you no walk round barefoot. Never ever walk around, even if you're in England on the carpet or here, little Johnny or Mary or Sue might have dropped a thumbtack or a needle or a pin or what have you, or a marker in the carpet, and you're walking on it barefoot and don't know, and it goes into some part of your foot, and you're not feeling the nerve endings. That is exactly why you will end up with toes amputated and feet being chopped off. When you go to the nice beaches that are around the Caribbean, when you're out there or so on, do not walk around barefoot. So in the summer, my daughter introduced me to this. It's called Birkenstock. They're very expensive, but I buy them in the sale. And I buy a lot of them. And your feet need to breathe. I say that when I go to the residential homes and I see the people have on socks and stockings and trainers sitting around in it. And I said, no. Go and take your shoes off, your trainers off. You're actually in your home. During the winter, of course, I have to wear appropriate footwear so that I don't get chilblains. But in the summer, and I'm saying to you loud and clear, allow your feet to breathe. And on top of that, two things I'm going to say. I know I'm teaching my granny to suck eggs, but there's some young people in here who can learn from this as well. When you wash your feet, dry between the toes properly. Never ever put lotion between the toes. You can put lotion at the other parts here. If you want to put anything between the toes, it has to be good old powder, talcum powder, okay? When I was growing up in St. Thomas, and this is how things have changed. We go to the standpipe, or we go down to Johnson River, and you see this crustiness, this thing at the back here, sir? You just rub it against the stone, sir, and you get rid of it. Have you done that? In Britain, me have to go into Holland and Barrett or Marks and Spencer, go buy pumice stone pumice stone, to actually rub down the dry skin that is. I am begging you to do that. And if the person is elderly and is unable to do it for them. Because if all of that dry skin is gathering there and not being rubbed down, that is when the thumbtack or the marker or the needle or the pin gets in there, stays in there, gets infested, and you end up having your feet chopped off. Are you with me? Yeah. Now, I'm in the church, so I'm not going to tell any lies. I wear these diabetes apparel all over the place, as I said earlier, in the train, here, there, wherever I am. If I'm dressed like how you are, nobody will know this guy works for diabetes as an ambassador, as a champion, as an activist. So I was in 6 Ways Aston a few years ago, and I heard somebody shout out, "Hello, Mr. Diabetes." And I thought to myself, he's been on my course. And he came over and he said, "I think you know my brother." I said, "If he looks like you, then yes." He said, "I want you to go and visit him. This is a true story in City Hospital on Dudley Road." And I said, "What for?" He says, "No, I'm not going to tell you. You go and see him. This is a man who, in order to attract all the women during the summer months, he would wear the skimpiest of T-shirts and the skimpiest of shorts. And every Arnold Schwarzenegger, every muscle, every sinew is showing of this muscle, of this guy's muscle." When I went to visit him at City Hospital, Dudley Road, I said, "Hi." We actually used to go to the same gym. And he pulled off his bed linen. He was at home with his son, and a glass bottle fell. And he used dustpan and brush and picked it all up. However, a splinter was left. It went into his big toe. Typical of most men. They tell an anti. Instead of women on the whole, if they have a little pain or a twitch or what have you, they head straight away, beeline, go see them doctor or the GP or the to find out what's wrong with them. Men are the complete opposite. Bury their head in the sand like the ostrich, hoping that the problem goes away. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, does the problem go away? No. So his friend visited him and said, "I don't like the smell of your toe. Proper stinking toe." I actually use the word, but it seems to be in every parish. In St. Thomas, we call stinking toe tembe. Does anybody in here know the word tembe? Well, it must be a St. Thomas thing then. But tembe is proper stinking toe. The pus come out and the this and the that. He wouldn't go. But the man, his friend convinced him, "You must go." He went down to the GP surgery, the doctors. The doctor took one look at him and said, "You've got to go to hospital. You either have gangrene or septicemia." He went to the hospital, reluctantly still. I'm telling you, this is a true story. They chopped off his big toe. The gangrene or septicemia, I can't remember which it is, but it's one of them, spread to the other 4 toes. They chopped off the other 4 toes. Ladies and gentlemen, the gangrene or septicemia spread up to here. They chopped off his leg just below the knee. Now, had he been going earlier, which is what men don't do, men, even when they're dead and I go to them grave, nothing still not wrong with them. Had he gone earlier, they would have been able to probably save at least the toes or whatever. You know what set in? Because he was into this macho, manly, and showing off his muscles and so on, depression set in. He drew all the curtains in his home, and he wouldn't let anybody in to see him because he had to be fitted after his sore, after that, with a prosthetic limb. You all know what prosthetic limb is. And he just didn't want to be. So eventually, I heard about it. And just that during COVID, when a lot of elderly people living on their own wanted to hear at least the voice at the end of the phone, I had a whole list of people who I would, because everybody was in lockdown in Britain as well, you know. And it would take nothing to call somebody and say, "Hi, how you do?" And some of them would say, "Oh, I'm so glad that somebody knows that here I am, an elderly person at the end of the phone. I want to hear a voice," sort of thing. But coming back to this chap, I had to ring him and I said, "You lost a limb. You didn't lose your life. Get over it. Try your best." And we coaxed him and encouraged him. And now he's fine. But I give you that as an example of The slow healing of cuts and wounds, when you buck your toe and you think, well, oh, it's going to get better no time, or something, you mustn't walk around barefoot, okay? I'd like you to take a picture of that because that's a very, very good way of finding out your diabetes. I don't know if you can see, but I'll tell you what it's on the Diabetes UK website, and it is called a Know Your Risk tool. Anybody can do it in any part of the world. Know Your Risk tool. What you do when you go to the website, it tells you put in your age, your gender, your height, your weight, your ethnicity. You put in all the things it requires of you, so you have to have a scale there to put in your weight, and you have to have a tape measure to put in your waist size as well. It can actually work out for you whether you are no risk, NO risk. This is people who want to know whether they're pre-diabetes or have it. No risk, low risk, LOW risk, medium risk, or high risk. 1.5 million people and counting have visited that Diabetes UK website. Now, if you're in Britain, and of course you put in your postcode, if you're in Britain, it will actually signpost you to classes done by the National Health Service. It's called the National Diabetes Prevention Program. And you go to weekly classes with others over a period of about 6 to 7 to 8 months to look at weight management, to look at diet, to look at how you're going to get yourself better and so on. Only for people who are medium or high risk. If you're no risk or low risk, there's no point sending you there. So the point about it is you should eat a healthy, balanced diet, be more active, and this is where I need to tell Mr. Given that I'm going to be very active here now. So where is he? Will the people on Zoom, will they be able to see me do what I'm going to do now? Mr. Given? They will. First thing, I'm going to do a series of things. I want you to start doing them. This is the bus station. Instead of coming off at your bus station here, you come off at the bus stop before or the bus stop after. You're not going to walk as if you're going behind a coffin or a casket at a funeral. You're going to walk briskly, 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 so that the heart muscles are pumping around the blood and enabling you to get rid of probably some of this extra glucose or sugar that's in your system. So that is number one. You have got to do more physical activity. Okay? I'm going to do a series of them, and I hope the people online can see. When I left here in 1979, there was only JBC television. You remember that? And you used to have to wait for 4 o'clock because it had all of this grainy stuff, and then finally it would come on. Now, in England as well, Canada, America, everywhere I go, everybody sit down, sedentary couch potato, 100 out, beep, 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 beep. Now I'm going to be deadly serious, and some of you might laugh. Hide the remote control, or put dead batteries in it, or take out the batteries. I am deadly serious, because within an hour, if you get up from your sedentary couch potato, nice chair, and go up to the television screen and turn the volume down or up or flick through the channels or whatever you have to do, you have done some physical activity. Are you with me? You'd be surprised if you keep doing that. The only physical activity most of you get is this and this. That ain't helping you. I want you to get up off your chair and go up. And then some people try and catch me up, but me very smart. Some people say, but Tony, some of the bigger televisions and the flat screen and the smart don't have any buttons. I went into every store, electrical store in Birmingham to find out. They said, that would be silly. If they lose the remote control, how the dickens are they going to be able to change? So whether at the top, whether at the side, or whether at the bottom, every single flat screen or smart screen television has buttons. So don't try that one with me. Please, don't go there, because I've done my homework. I've done my research. So we've done that. The next thing I want you to do is form a walking club. Form a walking club in your district, community, or wherever you live. I'm not asking you to walk in the hot, hot sun. So not during the day, try go for evening or try go for morning. One of my good friends here, my batchmate, Dr. Marston Thomas is here. Since I've been here, we've been going up to Mona Dam, 5 o'clock in the morning before any owner wake up. And we walk around the dam, fast-paced walking, because I'll come back to what the things I do, but that is physical activity. It doesn't have to be done in the heat of the midday sun. It can be done at a more reasonable time. But here's a walking club. So these 4 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, are part of a walking club. It can be 6, it can be 8. This man starts, he's got his apparel ready, and this is my good friend, by the way, Dr. Lola Ramakan, who the last High Commissioner we had in Britain. This is Dr. Lola Ramakan, his wife, okay? Now, we call on Dr. Lola Ramakan, and she said, Lord, my head hurt me, and the sun too hot. But this man is very assertive, and he says, we've got other people to pick up on the walk, so we're not leaving until you get yourself ready. And she was so determined she wasn't going to go. She never even put on her trainers or so on. But eventually we coax her, he coaxes her. Then we go to this woman, and she says, this is a real Jamaican time. When I was supposed to pick me up at 5:30, and now I'm well gone 6. I was about to take off my clothes. What you couldn't so long? And this man tell her the story of Dr. Lola Ramakan. Then the 4th person on the walk, it can be 5 or 6, is this young man, who I think is Dr. Lola Ramakan's grandson. And him said, you know, me didn't have too much to drink last night. Me have a bit of a hangover. These are the excuses they come up with. Or my foot hurt me, or too. And the others of you encourage, and say, come on, come on. This is a group thing. I don't want you to walk on flat surfaces. You will get no benefit from walking on flat surfaces. Jamaica full of hill and gradients and steep places. You go find steep places and gradients, and then start walk. Some of you will be faster walkers than others. So you will go ahead, and then you will wait for them to catch up. But then you start walking, all of you. You talk about ex-President 45. You talk about the Prime Minister. You talk about your children, your grandchildren. You talk about your hobbies. And you talk about Britain have 3 Prime Ministers in the space of 6 months. And when you don't talk all about those issues, you have walked 3 miles up hills and gradients and don't even realize it. You see the weight. If you keep on doing that, I haven't sent you to the gym. You see the weight start coming off, dripping off, so that the pancreas can do what it should be doing. You're getting yourself in shape, fit. Jamaica moves. Are you with me? Yes. Right. This is another one I'm going to do for you. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the muscle builder. You ain't going to be like him. Start with, it must be plastic bottles, so that when it drop, it don't break. Must be plastic. And what you're going to do, you're going to sit in your chair. At your home, you can make it be a family affair. Encourage others within the family to get involved, so you're not on your own. Children, grandchildren, nieces, nephew. You're going to sit in your chair and simply, with the plastic bottle full of water, or sometimes I say to people, to make it even better, use the Coke. The Coke will be your mantra. You know, drink the Coke, by the way, you know. Under no circumstance. I'm going to come on to fizzy drinks in a minute. But you're going to do this. Now, Jamaica is a land of music, reggae. Me not into dancehall. Pluto Shervington, Boris Gardner, that's my era me coming from. Bob Marley, Burning Spear, Ernie Smith, and you're just doing this. When you're tired of doing this, you do it that way as well. And when you're tired of doing it that way, you take it up there. To music. Huh? Even if you want to do it, I used to sing, some of you know, with the Jamaica folk singers under Olive Lewin, okay? And she sang at my wedding back in 1980. Put on that sort of music if you like that genre of music, put whichever takes your fancy. And you are doing physical activity in the comfort of your home. Are you with me? Now, you don't want up yourself to get all muscly and toned and so on, and down here so meager, mager. So you have to incorporate the feet into the routine. The feet have to be part of the physical activity that you are doing, so that when I come back and see you, you say, Tony, look at my physique now. All because of what you told me to go out there and do. That is what I'm about. Are you with me? Right. Let me see what else. I could spend all afternoon, evening doing a whole range of physical activities with you. I'll do 2 more because if you go on the internet, there is several there. Several easy physical activities. Another one, I'm not so sure it happens so much here, but in Britain, we have something called the travelator. When you go into the supermarket, the travelator is there, and it glides you up to about where that TV screen is, or a bit further. Next to the travelator is the steps or stairs. 99% of the people in Britain use the travelator. They plunk themselves on the travelator just to go. Ask yourself the question, do you have a travelator at your yard? You don't. So what the dickens are you going into the supermarket to use a travelator for? Another thing is, when people go to the supermarket, you watch where most people park. Right outside the entrance. Park the car way down yonder and walk. Your feet were made for walking. Are you with me? Here's another one. Hands up in this room, anybody who was born in a motor car. You were, sir? Seriously. In doing all of this training, only 2 people have ever raised their hands. And they said to me they were born in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. Now, me coming to Kingston here, and the roads are chock-a-block. When we were growing up in the country, we all walked to school. And we walked back from school. And the school run, I see the school run over here, where they're having to go just half a mile. And the mom or dad packing 4 or 5 children into a car to walk. Come on, people. Get the kids to walk. That's physical activity they're doing. And at the same time, you also need to get the kids off the PlayStation and the Game Boy and the tablet and the phone. Let them do running and hopscotch and marbles and cricket and Japanese relay or whatever takes their fancy, football or rounders. You need to allow your children to enjoy the pleasure of being outside. When I get the Holy Person of Britain, and a lot of people in Britain have to, during the winter months, take vitamin D tablets. Or not have the sun all year round, and then I have the kids locked up inside, like becoming square-eyed from all of this, the latest Game Boy and game invention. Put it away and give them valuable time out there. Let them socialize. Because it spoils the socialization process when all they do is just sit there. I see them going to restaurants, in a family in a restaurant. And the mother and father are trying to, or even them, and nobody's having a conversation with each other. Come on. We need to go back to that is how I was brought up anyway, and I'm sure most of you were. And you need to get that into the brains and the mindset of the younger generation. They've got to move away from this fixation with technology. Don't get me wrong, it's not because I don't like technology, but there has to be a certain point where we need to interact and speak with each other and so on. When I go into the banks, and they say, oh, you can go to the cash machine outside. I say, listen, I'm keeping you in employment. So you serve me, please, and don't tell me to go outside to no damn cash machine. And they say, oh, we never thought of it like that. And everywhere you go, when I phone up somewhere, go on the the World Wide Web. I ain't going on no www. I want to speak to somebody at the end of the phone. We need to be able to be in charge of our destiny. Are you with me? And not make technology rule us. So, 2 other things I'll mention apart from the car was, I don't do lifts. I leave tomorrow, but I have to go to Barbados. But if you saw me in a lift anywhere, slap me. I don't do lifts. If I'm going up to the 30th block of flats, and there are lots of high-rise buildings I notice going up in Kingston in particular, and when I go, like in Birmingham, and I say, what floor you want? I say, I'm going up to the 30th floor. And they say, what? Are you Superman? How are you going to get up there? I say, watch me. The lift stops at the 3rd, the 5th, the 2nd, the 9th, the 11th, the 12th, the 14th, the 20th, the 27th. I have reached the 30th floor by your feet were made for walking. Let me tell you something out of secret. When I did just start that, by the time I reached the second floor, me out of breath, and I hold on for dear life. But now, because I do it so regularly, it's water off a duck's back. Are you with me? It's the heart muscles I want you to get moving and moving. Now, this is what I do. I'm going to now name you the things I do. For the number of years, I go to a Pilates class. A number of years, I go to a yoga class, because yoga is about relaxation and keeping calm. So Pilates and breathing techniques. Pilates, yoga. I'd play badminton with my cousin. I also do aqua aerobics, one of the best forms of physical activity you can do, whereby you're standing in the water in the pool, and the water not come no further than here. The instructor is there with the music, and 20, 22, 24 of you are moving your hands and feet in the water to the floor of them. It's one of the best forms of physical activity. Now, my grandmother used to say I'm her favorite grandson. So she never sent me go catch crab. She never sent me to the beach. She never sent me to the river. She said, yeah, go drown. I have never learned to swim. 3 years ago, I read an article, and some of you should know who this is. Linford Christie, Jamaican born, but he ran for Britain. Linford Christie won gold medals in the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games and the World Championships. He did open water swimming, open water. I'm not brave enough to do open water. And I thought, if it's good enough for Linford Christie, it's good enough for Tony Kelly. So, Birmingham University, where I did my master's degree, I thought, and I live just not far from there, I thought, I'm going to go learn to swim. And I registered last year, and I've started to swim. And I was in the beginner's class. But they said, Mr. Kelly, you're very good, you know. I said, am I? They said, yes, yes. Because I couldn't even float. And about 3 months ago, I was moved from the beginner's class to the intermediary class, which is the class before advanced. That deserves a round of applause. Thank you. And I'm saying loud and clear, this myth that black people can't swim, remember we're surrounded by the Caribbean Sea, and I've been to 3 beaches since being here, and everybody, all the black people on the beach, just paddling in the sand, and I'm out swimming, and the lifeguard said, my gosh, you can't swim. I'm the only lifeguard here. You want a job here? I said, no, me go back to England, so I can't get a job here. But the point I'm making is, it's never too late for a shower of rain. I'm saying to you, even if you don't want to take up swimming, encourage the young children. Once young people, you start them off with our daughter Abigail, we started her from about age 3. You put rubber armbands around them, and then eventually they get this, they don't have no fear of water. Start them early, and get them into the habit of swimming. I always think of and you will know this story, it saddens me. 2 boys came from here, went to the States, and both of them drowned. And the parents had to go and identify their body. That story hurts me. And I think they were in their 20s. Eh? No, they should have been learning, just like you have children and grandchildren. Don't take them to open sea. Take them to the YMCA or other places where they have a proper swimming instructor. Holy Childhood High School, when I was there. They used to do swimming lessons there. I could have learned there, but they still have it? They still have it. Okay. I wish I'd learned to swim, but I am now a competent swimmer. That's what I'm saying. So that's another physical activity that I do. So eat a healthy, balanced diet. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Oh, yes, I did miss, and that's very important to show you this one. I'm going to give you some of my personal experiences. Some people say, well, why you do that? I need to, so you see where I'm coming from. Most people, when you go to your doctor, you get your HbA1c done, and it will give the doctor or healthcare professional what you've ate or drank for the last 3 months. You cannot escape that, okay? I have something called the sickle cell trait, not the full-blown sickle cell anemia. If my wife had the sickle cell trait, which I have, then the chances are our daughter would have been born with a sickle cell anemia. And for those who are not familiar with sickle cell, the sickle is crescent-shaped, crescent, like the moon, C-shaped, or like the scythe that you use to cut the grass. So unlike a full corpuscle or cell that is round and disc-shaped and can go through the blood just like that around the body, some people have crisis, sickle cell crisis, and are in such pain they have to end up in hospital to relieve the pain. So I cannot do the HbA1c. I do something called the fructosamine test. The fructosamine test, and it can only tell me what I've ate or drank in the last 2 weeks, just the last 2 weeks. So I sometimes jokingly said to my wife, well, I'm going to have the hard-dough bread and the this and the that 3 weeks before, but stop. But I jest. On a serious note, as for hard-dough bread, 3 times a year. Christmas, me know it, I can find that. Christmas, Easter, and Independence. No more hard-dough bread comes into the Kelly household. Because what you need to understand, all carbohydrates you eat, forget about the donut and the ice cream and all those sweet things. All carbohydrates you eat, starchy food, bread, pasta, patty, rice, all carbohydrates are starchy food. If you don't learn anything from this today, remember, break down into your body into glucose or sugar. Are you clear on that? That is a fact, okay? And if any nurse or doctor here disputes that fact, they have me to deal with. I don't know what the nurses and doctors in the room. I've only been told that some are here. They probably might come afterwards and tell me. But I'm asking you, please, you've got to go for smaller portion sizes in whatever you're doing and cut down on this whole heap of fat and sugar. Where am I now? So, in the earlier days, they used to send back for me and say, Mr. Kelly, the bloods didn't work. And it was because some of the nurses were not aware of the fact that I have the sickle cell trait, so they have to send off for the fructosamine test, and more black people have the sickle cell trait, the full-blown sickle cell anemia, or thalassemia. So you need to be sure what your category you're in and what you're sending off. Some of the ones nowadays can't even spell fructosamine, so I may have to spell it for them to put on the label. Blood pressure. When I was a child, I had 1 or 2 of my teeth taken out in Whitehall. And you had these white dentists that would travel around, and they were the ones who would come to the villages and take out. And they took out 2 of my teeth, and they didn't put in enough local anesthetic. My gosh, I was in pain. And ever since then, I suffer from white coat syndrome. If any of you in here put on a white coat, you don't even have to start even put on the stethoscope. Faster. So I was at my GP having my bloods done, having my blood pressure done. And she said, your blood pressure is very high. And I said, well, as usual, it takes 3 readings. And it was still high. So what she did was she put me on a blood pressure monitor to go home with and in my normal, natural environment. And I brought it back after 24 hours. And she said, it's fine. Now, that's the issue I have with some people. I don't know about here in Jamaica, but some people back in England who say immediately the blood pressure gone up or is a bit raised, they put them on blood pressure tablets. Allow the person to do whatever, whether do some swimming or do whatever, get more active and so on, before you go down the big pharma medical route. It's all I'm saying, you know. Pernicious anemia. If I had not put what it meant, 99% of you in here, apart from the doctors and nurses, wouldn't know what pernicious anemia is. Lacking in vitamin B12. And all vegans or vegetarians, because the B12 is in animal products. That's where the B12 comes from. And if you're not an animal eater, you have to supplement your B12 by taking tablets. So I was feeling tired a few years ago, and I went down to the doctor, and they took a sample of blood, and they sent it off to the lab, and they kept calling me for about 3 days, because I have a very good set of surgery doctors. They're very good, because I do the training. When the students come from the medical school, It's only one person they call to do the diabetes stuff with them. They call on me because they said nobody does it better than me from a patient perspective. So anyway, the doctor said, you have pernicious anemia, which is lacking in vitamin B12. That's the proper name for it. So I said, doctor, what are we going to do? Him said, listen to this carefully. Every 3 months for the rest of your life, you will have to have a B12 injection. Let me tell you, I remember exactly what I said to him because he never understood. Mr. Doctor, you have to go wheel and turn and come again. Him never understand what I mean. But I then explained to him, I have a lot of doctors and nurses in my family. I'm going to go to the Pernicious Anemia Society website, and I'm going to look, what are the things I need to do to increase my B12? And I did that, and I have Floradix, Floradix. I don't know if it's available in Jamaica, but I get that. It's a tonic. And all older people start to lose their B12. So I use that. My wife prefers Metatone tonic. I'm sure there must be others in the health shops here. And I went back, and the doctor said, ever since your B12 is in the normal range. And I just looked at the doctor in the eye, and I said, so what the dickens you was wanting to juke me in my bottom every 3 months for the rest of my life? So he understood that, and he laughed. Kidney stones. Some years ago, my mother was alive at the time. All 3 of my relatives who I showed you, because of the bedside manner of nurses trained in England, America gobbles them up. America just loves British trained nurses. So they all went to work in New York, in the States. But a few years ago, I had the almost almighty pain going down my side. One of the side, I can't remember which. And I turned to my wife and I said, my appendix burst. I'm sure it burst. But women are very bright, you know. She said, don't be so silly. Your appendix is not on that side. I said, how am I supposed to know that? Me in a pain, I'm hurting, I'm suffering. They called for the ambulance. I went to the hospital, and they discovered that I like to drink full-fat cow's milk. The more cream in the milk, the better. The doctor said to me, and my mother told me off, cow's milk is for the formation of teeth and bones in babies and children. Adults not supposed to be drinking cow's milk. I'm going to name you the 5 plant-based milks that you should be having in your diet. Some of them taste bad like well, you know, but it becomes an acquired taste. Oat milk, rice milk, almond milk, oat milk, rice milk, almond milk. There's another one we have. Cashew milk. And last but by no means least, good old coconut milk. They're all plant-based, and those are the milk you as adults should be drinking, not cow's milk, okay? I know some of this you might think, oh my God, Tony's wanting us to reinvent the whole world. I'm wanting you to be healthy. That's all I'm here about, getting this health message out there. Are you with me? So eat a healthy, balanced diet. Eat a healthy, balanced diet. Be more active. Why do taxi drivers, bus drivers, van drivers, tube drivers, and lorry drivers mainly develop type 2 diabetes? Why? Sorry? Sedentary. They're sitting down for most of the day. When they get home, the TV, they're tired. The TV is watching them more than them watching the TV. They go up to bed and they sleep, and the routine starts again. That is why. Take your medications if prescribed. Now, this is what I'm going to talk about, social prescribing. It's not big in Jamaica yet. It is very, very big in England. What they discovered, the National Health Service, was that they were just doling out medication, 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 big pharma, and it was masking the problem. The medical drugs, for some people didn't even want to lose weight because they think, oh, I'm on tablets. I keep taking the tablet and then maintain the weight. So what they did, the National Health Service looked at this very, very seriously and said, we're going to try it differently. Each doctor is prescribed, has a social prescriber, and if you go into your doctor and it's a question of you need to lose weight or you need to tone up or you need to look at your cholesterol level or what have you, on the GP's budget, you now can have a course of Pilates classes, yoga classes, swimming classes, and allotment. Allotments in Britain is when you get a piece of land and you grow your chocho and your pumpkin and your this. So you're doing physical activity or dancing or whatever. So that's what's happening. I think I mentioned the 4 things I do. Acrobics, but I left out one. Let me mention it now. I go to a Zumba class. And most of you ladies will know Zumba is done by ladies. I don't mind going. I don't have no shame to go. Because when I go, I say, I am the rose amongst these thorns. That's all. And I think of what suffering I saw by relatives in Jamaica, and I'm not prepared to go there. Are you with me? Right. So moving swiftly on, Dr. Gambele, is he here? He said he was going to come today. Anyway, he's a diabetes expert, and he tends to go for smoothies. Smoothies in the sense of vegetable smoothies with the kale, the callaloo, the spinach, that of you. Or some people go for fruit smoothies. Now, first of all, you shouldn't buy smoothies in supermarkets. They are packed with what? Sugar. I'm going to come on to the soda and all of that in a minute. But he swears by vegetable smoothies. And a lot of people in England think, oh, I'm going to go on a diet and I'm just going to have vegetable smoothies and so on. As of today, you will very rarely have a fruit smoothie or a vegetable smoothie. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why. Your mouth is formed to chew the kale, the carrot, the callaloo, the spinach, the raspberry, the custard, the whatever, the apple, into a ball or bolus, B-O-L-U-S, or ball. It then, with all the salivas that you have used to chew, what have you, it then in that bolus or ball goes down here, and in here, kindly remember your general science and biology days, the peptic acids and the amino acids take over the job of doing what they should do and dissipating it around the body. If you have a smoothie, this is Tony Kelly's smoothie. Nothing happens in the mouth at all. It's already bypassed the mouth. It's gone down here. And all you're passing it out later on is here or there. And doctors have told me, yes, Tony, you get that smoothie message out there to people. It is not the best thing. Now and again have a smoothie, but it should not be something that you're having regularly. Okay? Right. Have I? Yes. So here we go to, and if you want to take a picture of that slide before I then bring up the other two and try and finish, I don't want you to go to fake, false, or phony websites. There are a lot of them around who want you to send off your hard-earned money for tablets, potions. Let me ask you something. If you send off for a tablet or a potion, somebody telling you there's a cure for diabetes, how do you know what they have put in it? Could be horse manure, cow dung, grass. Please do not send off money to these. Go and speak to your doctor, if necessary, or your healthcare professional, and get some proper advice. But bringing that back up again, it's important that you go to the Diabetes UK website. Back in England, we have to stress this, because the Asian people tend to think that, oh, it's only English spoken on the website. I have to go to those groups and say, they can get a translator in Mopuru, Hindi, Gujarati, Arabic, Chinese, whatever language that you are, your mother tongue. So those are the websites that I would be urging you to go to, the tried and tested proper websites about diabetes, and not the fake, false, phony ones. Now, this should come up with that, but while I just change that, that's a colored picture. Somebody thought my other picture was so nice that they used technology to bring it into color. That was done from the 60s. So, let me just bring that down. Bear with me. Help me here. Come on. I'm going to do a quiz with, oh, you're off. Oh, wait. We'll speak. Okay. We'll speak.
Yeah, we'll
Yes,
speak.
all right. Thanks for coming. Yes, indeed. I'm going to do a quiz and see how well you are in terms of your knowledge of these issues. Food and diabetes quiz. Hands up, do people with diabetes need to follow a special diet? If you think so, please raise your hand and keep your hand up. Okay, I've got enough takers. I'm going to be picking on people now. Could you tell us, you can put your hands down. Could you tell the group why people with diabetes, why they need to follow a special diet? Go on, I'll repeat it for them. Because what? Too much sugar. Okay, that's fine. Okay. You had your hand up, sir. Why should people with diabetes follow a special diet? Quickly, because we need to move on. They have to lower their sugar intake. The ones who did not put up your hands, you are correct. There is no need for anybody to follow a special diet. We all should eat a healthy, well-balanced diet. So, back in the 60s in Whitehall, St. Thomas, because so many diabetes people were in the family, they'd put on a completely different path way back then to us for the children, and a different one for the children. That was not necessary. All of us must follow a healthy, well-balanced diet. Do people with diabetes need to stop eating rice? Put up your hand if you agree with that. I have diabetes, I must stop eating rice. No, just put up your hand. You don't need to say anything. Just one hand. Sir, could you tell the group why, because you have diabetes, you must stop eating rice? Tell the group, please. What's happened there? Technician, what's gone there? Right, sorry, it's back. Sorry, what did you say? Because of carbohydrate level. Therefore, listen to this. There are 2 billion people living in China. Are you telling me all these people in China must stop eating rice? I remember they're at the top of the tree in terms of diabetes. The answer to that is no. Portion sizes. And this is where I'm going to show you a portion size. Could you all, and it's for your own good, put out your hand like that, one hand, and look at your hand. Like that. Everybody, please, it's for your own good. The portion of rice that you eat on your dinner plate must fit comfortably in the palm of your hand. Now, we know that is going to be a major problem for Jamaicans, but you don't have to try. Some people say, Tony, you mean this? Me say, no. Me say, one hand. And some people jokingly said to me, are you talking the uncooked rice? Me say, no, because when the uncooked rice go into the pot, it will go swell. I am being serious because you will have your meat on your plate if you're a meat eater. You'll have your salads and your other thing. Too much of one thing is good for nothing. So the days of me having 6, 7, 8 tablespoons of rice is not anymore. And when I go out on some of the places we go and we've had like a takeaway, I've had a few takeaways here. The amount of rice, me can't eat more than a 2 tea. Too much. Having said that, I have another goodie bag to come up now. What rices? There are 3 rices. Forget bulgur. Bulgur is very good for you. And quinoa. Those are 2. There are 3 rices you should eat more than any others. I'm not giving anything for brown rice, because everybody should know that. Let me see if anybody can name me the other 2. Basmati. Absolutely correct. Hang on. Shh. Basmati, whether white or brown, is good for you. I'm not making this up. This is, if you don't believe me, go look on the Diabetes UK website. Basmati rice, brown or white, is good for you, as is brown rice. And I dare anybody in here to name me the 3rd rice, apart from the ones we just mentioned. Basmati, brown or white, brown rice. What's the other rice you should eat more than any others? You ain't gonna get it. Nobody has gotten it since I've been doing this tour. Sorry? Well, I don't, what is it called? Bad smelling rice from, me from England, I don't know what the bad smelling rice you're talking about. I'll tell you, wild rice, W-I-L-D, not W-H-I-T-E. Those are the three, wild rice. And I hear there's not a lot of it in Jamaica. Right, so, okay. So moving swiftly on, because time's going, the people with diabetes need to stop, avoid sweet fruit like mango and banana. Any partakers on that? Anybody want to raise their hand? Well, thank God. Let me just quickly tell you. Let me tell you, fruits are good for you. But you just finished mango season about August. May miss the mango season. However, fruits, this is the issue with fruits. If you lead the sedentary couch potato lifestyle and not doing physical activity and burning up the calories, you cannot in one setting be eating, wash your pot, turn them down, mango time, 8, 9, 10 mangoes. Okay? You have, so when I get my mangoes, they're very expensive. The Julia mangoes, live and direct from Jamaica, big box. And my wife said, and how many of those are you going to, I said, I eat 5 now. And she said, my doctor has given me permission to have so many because I do Pilates, aquarobics, badminton, I walk everywhere, I do swimming. I am constantly burning up the calories. Fruits is still natural sugar or fructose. You will still pile on pounds. Are you with me? Right. With the ripe banana, when I was growing up in St. Thomas, ripe bananas, the fingers were like this. That are the purple. Now the banana, they long so. And you have to cut it in two and have half and put half away. The darker the banana skin is, the sweeter the banana will be. So you need to be mindful of that. And we go for back in England, it might be expensive here, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries. Blueberries is an exotic food. It is very, very good for the digestive system. You are spoiled with guava, guinea, OTT apple. I go down Carnation Market and I see and one thing about fruits and vegetables I must tell you, please do not buy your fruit and vegetables in the supermarket. You're paying for the wrapping, you're paying for the polystyrene, you're paying for the ambience, you're paying for the car park, you're paying for the, go to Linseed Market, Crossroad Market, Papine Market, the market just out the road here, so, or wherever, you will get the fresh fruits and vegetables at 1/3 of the price that you are paying for in the expensive supermarkets. Are you with me? So when people are there telling me in the training, Tony, we can't afford vegetable, you know, it's so expensive out of Jamaica. And then the next question, same we have it in England. Where do you buy your vegetables? Or in Marks and Spencer's, or Harrods, or we buy it in the supermarket. Listen, try and think of how best you can utilize your few dollars without having to go straight. Oh, I have to go to Southern Plaza to buy the vegetables and the fruits. Are you with me? The same applies. All people with diabetes need to eat more vegetables. Every person needs to eat more vegetables. Red onion, red cabbage, red this, red that. But at the same time, I'll just hasten to add, cut down on your red meat portions. And by red meat portions, I'm talking oxtail, curried goat, and beef. Red meat is the main cause. I do a lot of work on prostate cancer back in Britain. Red meat is the main cause of prostate cancer in men and colon cancer in all of us. I am begging you, cut down. Well, we buy oxtail in Britain. It is one of the most expensive things imaginable. So we only have it 3 times a year. 3 times a year. And when I ask the butcher, why is it so expensive? You know what his answer is? Only one tail the cow have, you know. I say, well, okay, me can't argue with that. The cow have 4 feet and other parts. Right, coming to it. Dal and beans. The Asian community use a lot of dal and beans, which is lentils or pulses. I'm begging you, the more lentils and pulses, beans that you use in your diet, it is the digestive tract, the fiber, it is very, very good for you. The only bean I'll tell you to shy away from is baked beans. Baked beans, especially if it's a normal one, is packed with sugar and salt. So either go for the reduced one. One minute we're here, coconut oil good for you. Then the scientists say it's not good for you. Then they change their mind, and that has been from time immemorial. We tend to use, it's more expensive, extra virgin olive oil, which is part of what the Mediterranean people use. We tend not to go for vegetable oil or corn oil, extra virgin, but coconut oil is good for you. But what I want you to do more of, instead of using oil and the fry-ups and the fire-up, you boil, you bake, you steam, you grill, and you roast. Boil, bake, steam, grill, and roast. By the time we don't know how to turn something else from what you were before. But seriously, cut down on your oil consumption. Too much oil inside of you is doing you no good. And that's for that whole heap of butter and the donuts. When I left here 79, all the young boys and girls, men and women, were selling the pack of 5 donuts down into the crossroads and all here. Me come back 2022, and they still sell the donut them. The donut should be no more than twice a year. All that oil they're doing it in and sugar, I'd rather you had fresh fruits, okay? You can't avoid all sugar. I'm speeding up now. You can't avoid all sugar. You have to have some sugar in your diet, but not that chocolate. That is sugar, sugar, sugar. Go for the dark chocolate, which is 70 to 80 to 90% cocoa. It's bitter. When I say bitter, it's bitter. So if it takes you 2 weeks to finish a bar, because you're going to just have a chunk, and you're going to put it down again. But that's the best chocolate to go for. Don't buy diabetic foods. For instance, that is a marketing ploy. It says no sugar added. They are right. Instead, they've added sweeteners or saccharines. And for some people, not all, sweeteners and saccharines is carcinogenic, meaning it can lead to cancer. So avoid that. Go for honey, but not a lot of honey, having said that, because honey is still sweet, okay? In Jamaica, we have a sweet tooth. We've got to get rid of that sweet tooth if we're going to conquer this whole issue. Salt, hypertension, high blood pressure. Please, I said it at the beginning, and you heard what I said about the slave trade and so on. Cut down on your salt consumption. As a matter of fact, in our house, my daughter's husband is a chef. He says they deliberately salt the food in restaurants. Why? Huh? Absolutely. To make you drink more. You're thirsty, and then what you then do, your drink bill is more than your food bill. So when we go into restaurants, and we know that, and they come around having salted the food, we say, and they say, can we get you something? Expecting to get the beer, the lager, the wine. All we say to them is a jug of water. They mouth long from yesterday to Montego Bay and back, because that is not what they were expecting. They want to make money from the drinks. So try and get wise to that and cut down on having the drinks. So that's a good answer. Don't go for that salt, because that's just additives and preservatives. The sea is salted as well. Beg your pardon, the sea is polluted. Sorry, the sea is polluted. Go for, and it is in some health shops over here, Himalayan salt. It is pink in color. If you can't remember the name Himalayas, when you go into the specialist stores, just say the salt from the highest mountain in the world. That's what you need to say, pink salt. And as a matter of fact, in our home, these are what we use, and you tell me what they are. Basil, dill, sage, garlic, cloves, onions. What are these? Come on. Absolutely. Use those to season up your meat dishes. And you have some over here, just like in America and in Britain, where they have these pre-seasoned, and you open it up, just taste it. This is what you're going to coat the chicken or the liver. Huh? Do like what my grandmother used to do. She would flour up the chicken, she would put a tad little salt on it, because she knows all these people in the household have diabetes, and that. I even go as far as to say, cook the food without any salt. And if people want to put salt on it, make them put their own salt on it, the condiments at the table. Okay? Chlorella, that's used a lot. And I'll come on to another slide about chlorella in a minute. It's used a lot by the Asian community. It's a bitter melon or bitter gourd for their dishes. 3 meals a day. Some people do intermittent fasting, and I'm not going to stop them from doing it. That's their prerogative. Because I'm diabetic, I have to have something in my stomach. Breaking the fast. You remove the ing from the break. You remove the. You put the break and the fast together. What you get? Exactly. So I do have breakfast. I'm afraid. Now, before I talk about the fish, in the fish there is lemon or lime. For the last 10 or 11 years, every single morning before I have anything else in my stomach, and I have it here while I'm out here, I squeeze a lemon in warm water and I drink it. And doctors in Britain say to me, I can never remember which is which. One's acidic and one's alkaline. It's the best thing to wake up the stomach. Warm water, a squeezed lemon. Over here it might be more lime because I don't think you have a lot of lemons. But that is what I've been doing and keeps my stomach in good order. But let me just go back to the fish. Oily fish. Herring, tuna, mackerel, sardine. The more oily fish you have in your diet, it wards off dementia, Alzheimer's, and senility, getting senile. Oily fish stimulates the brain. I'm asking you, please, to include more oily fish in your diet. But Tony Kelly did not say, like in Britain, go down to the fish and chip shop and all that oily fish, what they do. That's not the oily fish we're talking about, okay? On the issue of salmon, the pink salmon, a lot of the pink salmon is farmed. So they feed it with pink pellets. And you see the lovely, beautiful pink salmon in the supermarket. That, doctors have told me, is carcinogenic or cancerous. You are to go for the red salmon, which is from the wilds of Alaska. That is far better salmon for you, okay? Do people with diabetes need to avoid alcohol? Not necessarily. I know some people in some religions don't drink at all, okay? The Muslims don't, the Adventists don't, and some other faiths don't. But if you're going to drink alcohol, alcohol-free days, so none on Sunday, a bit on Monday, none on Tuesday. Spread it out over the week, because every alcohol that you drink is calorie consumed. It is actually calories in the alcohol. You will still put on weight. Whether it be beer, lager, stout, rum, gin. My father used to say, food is the staff of life, but rum is life itself. But be careful of your alcohol consumption. And if you're going to drink and drive, you never drink on an empty stomach, because that will go down around the body so quickly, the blood, and you go out there and you'll have an accident and kill somebody and kill yourself. Okay? Coming to the end. Stop smoking. If you are a smoker, that's all I can say to that. Please stop smoking. And then I'll end with a cultural myth, which you will find interesting. And then, oops, bear with me. Right, so cultural myths. These are cultural myths and misconceptions that are around and which we have to then dispel as we go about doing this sort of work. I have to constantly, from beginning, start slideshow, from beginning, yeah. This is the last set of slides, and here goes. It's called cultural myths and misconceptions. So the Asian community use the Karela a lot, and some of them put their medication down and said that is going to cure them. Well, this is part of their culture from day one. So if it could have cured them from the diabetes, then, you know, so we have to tell them. And in our black community, we tend to use, my granny from way back, aloe vera, tuna, and Cinco Bible. You all know those, don't you? Yeah. I'm not going to just dismiss them because, you know, she said, no, I'm not having the Fenzik in the house, or the Cafanol, or what have you, or the Panadol. So she used to swear by that. So I'm not going to rubbish it. That's what we grew up on. So be mindful of herbal remedies. Let me ask the question, is diabetes a touch of sugar? Hands up if you think it is. You would believe, doing this for 10.5 years, you see some hands shut up. And I said, well, what maybe therapy I beat up my mouth for over an hour and a half for. Diabetes is more than a touch of sugar. Now, I like white people. I work with them and so on. But you should not be having white sugar. White refined sugar is not good for you. White flour on its own is not good for you. Go for whole grain and whole meal, that sort of bread, and white flour, white sugar, and white bread. As for hard-dough bread, you should be having granary bread and brown bread and whole meal bread. Okay? Big is beautiful. In some communities, and I'm not going to tell you which, but especially in Britain, you see the man as skinny as a rake walking down the road, and next to him is his queen, his duchess, or his princess. Those are the ones that my daughter, when she come here, said, Dad, what are we them juicy? They are big, and this man is thinking, yes, I've conquered. Look who is my partner. That is a recipe for disaster. Diabetes is going to come that person's way. And some people say to me, Tony is part of my culture. I say, well, you can keep it as part of your culture. Big is not beautiful. Less is more. This we hear a lot, and diabetes is an old person's condition. Folk, gentle folk, now children as young as 12, 13, 14, 15, the doctors in the audience might be able to back me up with that, are beginning to develop type 2 diabetes because of their lifestyle, the food they're eating, and not doing any physical activity. Coming to the end, could we all read that one for me so you get the sense of it? All together read it, please. Yes, there's some people across the world who think if the missus or the wife not feeding up their husband, a big belly is a sign of a happy marriage. That man is about to have triplets. What size should all Asian men be? Shout it out. I said Asian men. Thank you. 35. I never said 37. I never said 31. What size should all women be? 31. Sorry? 31 under. What size should black men and white men be? 37. And should it be down at the trouser size? Where should it be? Our navel string, okay? Coming to an end, some people in Britain have this thing about, I've got to show how wealthy I am, how affluent I am, how rich I am, and pack the larder or the kitchen with all of that stuff. That is 3 times a year. One dega strawberry, I'd rather see naseberries and tangerine and grapes and oranges and watermelon, eating those. And as I talk about watermelon, aim for 2 liters of water per day. The function of the kidney is to flush the toxins and poisons from your system. The more water you drink, the more hydrated you will be, because you sweat a lot in this country. People in England, especially elderly people, don't drink enough water or even enough cups of tea, and they become dehydrated. Aim for more water. And the water doesn't have to be just with water. There's water in tangerines, in oranges, in other fruits as well. Okay? So that when you urinate, your urine is a lovely golden color and doesn't have a dark color to it and doesn't smell awful. You know, you need to aim for more water each and every day. That's very important to keep hydrated. And also, I've done a lot of these back from Britain on webinar, and I used to talk about aerated water. And people said, Tony, the young people don't know about aerated water. That is Kelly's. Remember Kelly's and D&G? It's pop and soda and fizzy drink. Cut down on the pop, the soda, the fizzy drink. And if you have to give Tommy or Jane or Sue a little orange juice or apple juice or whatever from a box, behind them back, put water in it and dilute it before you place it in front of them. Because if you keep on giving them this fruit and they get addicted to the taste, that's what they're going to want, you know? So we used to call it sky juice. I hear they call it bad juice now. No. Go for water, and more water. I've overrun, but let me make sure I didn't. Yeah, coming to an end. Oh, it's God's will. Or the Holy Bible, the Holy Quran say, we're going to get diabetes, just accept it. Absolute rubbish. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. Nowhere in the Holy Quran. So we have to point that out to them. This is one we hear a lot. Diabetes is a mild condition. Everybody have it. It's no big deal. Nonsense again. We have to be out there making people aware of that. If you have diabetes, you won't be able to find a husband and you can't have children. Now, my stepmother in Brampton, Canada, had type 1 diabetes from way back. It was harder for her to conceive, but she did have my half-sister, Julie. This is in Ramadan, at the very end now. If you prick your finger during the holy month of Ramadan, you have broken the fast. Absolute rubbish. So I'm out there in communities, as are the other ambassadors and champions, saying that. And that's the end. Thank you very much. I'll just leave this with you. I'm going to pass it around. After your Holy Bible, this book should be in your kitchen. It's called World Foods, a visual guide to African, Arabic, Caribbean, and South Asian foods for diabetes and weight management. And it tells you the calorie amount, the carbs, the fat, the so on. Please, it's $12.99 on Amazon. Diabetes UK have endorsed this. Get this book and have it with you. Because I can't sit here telling you all the foods you should eat and not eat and so on. I'll pass it around, but I must have it back, please. You can take a photograph of it. But that's the end. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of people having to go? There are some goodies here to hand out. Where are they? This is the last of the lot I have left. I bought 70 pounds in weight. You're the last one, so there are not many left. But they are on the website. But this one is Enjoy Food, African Caribbean food. So come help yourself to that. And then the other one is your guide to type 2 diabetes, and another one for footwear. I'll leave them over here. You're heading out now?
Yeah, man.
All right. But be in touch, yes. Sir. Oh, I was going to put them all on there. Huh? If you share them out. There are not many, but the stuff is also on the Diabetes UK website.
Thank you.
Sheila, is somebody going to do the vote of thanks? Everybody's leaving. That's all now. That's it.
Where's the other one?
They've gone then. They've gone. They've gone. They've all finished. There are not many. They've all gone. I mean, you're the last. Okay. Thank you. You're going to do the vote of thanks, sir? Can we just, a moment, this gentleman is going to do the vote of thanks.
Colleagues, could you just hold on for 10 more minutes?
I don't know if it's on. Is it on? Oh, there. No, that's it. No, that's all right. Because I've been at all other events for a while, so they've all gone. But if you go to the Diabetes UK website, you'll see recipes and stuff there. Oh, yes, by all means.
Ambassador Kelly, this might have been a relatively small audience, but it has been an intense audience. You recognize that there was very little sound as you spoke, and I now recognize why.
Right.
The manner in which you delivered that message certainly proves that you're like a Michael man. Might grow by many years.
You're a Michaelian as well.
You have been a Might grow by many years.
Okay.
But really, this has been worth it. Most of us don't understand what we are dealing with.
Yeah.
And most people can't explain it. I think you have done a marvelous job
Thank you.
of explaining to us
Thank you.
and demonstrating, and also demonstrating not only what we should not do, but what we should do.
Yeah.
Which is important. And I want, on behalf not just of the Church of the Ascension, but on behalf of all of us individually and collectively, and not those of us who are here, but because we are streaming. Because we are streaming, the number who are online, and the fact that they'll be able to get back to it, I think that on behalf of all of us, I wish to really, really say thank you.
Thank you.
And in thanking you, I want to thank those who supported you in terms of the actual ability to carry this. Because I suspect that there'll be many, many more persons who would have seen it, and certainly most of us will go back and check on it and follow it slowly. Continue this work.
Thank you.
It is important work.
Thank you.
And let me thank Sister Sheila for
Yes.
introducing the idea and making certain that it
Yes,
happened
sir.
here.
Yes, yes.
And Canon Michael isn't, I don't think he's still here. But he really, really insisted that this be done, because our first person who was to carry it, Dr. Barnaby, she unfortunately could not be
Yes,
here,
she's in-
and that created a little hiccup. But I think that now that you have done it, the next time you are coming back to Jamaica, we certainly would want to have you here at the Ascension again.
Yes, I'd gladly come again.
Let
Has
me
it been,
also just say
whatever was on YouTube, is that going to be recorded? It's been recorded?
It's
Right,
recorded.
okay. So others who weren't able to be here today can
We'll
see
be
it.
able- we'll be able to
Right.
get it.
I hope I don't bore them and put them to sleep when they're watching it.
Let me just also say that the husband of one of your batchmates, and the other batchmate is not well, and the husband wanted to have been here. That is Duhaney.
Oh, right.
Bertrand.
Yes, yes.
He
mm.
wanted to have been
Be
here.
here,
I spoke to him since I was here, and he asked me to apologize.
That is
to him,
right,
because
okay.
his wife isn't your batchmate, isn't
But
she?
yes, Barbara.
All right?
Yes.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Colleagues, thank all of you who have come. I'm certain that you have gotten your time's worth. So thanks. Convey that to me. Okay, sir? And
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
good trip to Barbados.
Thank you. You're welcome. Sorry?
Don't worry that much.
And you learned a lot today.
Don't worry that batchmate of yours, that one.